Welcome back, Heroclix fans. Today we are looking at the next requested in our key lists, and that is our top 10 scientists. Now this has always been a fantastic keyword to build around. We've had the likes of Dr. Demonicus before. We've had the Superman 001 Superman before, played at 150. Had quite a big impact on the metagame. In general, scientist covers pretty much everyone. You've got Mr. Fantastic, Iron Man, Maximus, Mr. Sinister, just a whole cast of characters. So we're going to break down our top 10. Before we get into it, I do want to give a shout out to a gaming and hobby store, which is just opened, well, I say just opened, a few months ago opened in Grantham. If you want to check them out, they're Dice Cavern Games on Facebook. I will leave a link below in the description, and I am talking to the owner, Steve, at the minute about possibly running Heroclix. So if you're in the area, something you're interested in, they also run Magic, Dungeons and Dragons, board game nights, Yu-Gi-Oh, Pokemon, you name it, they play it. Check them out on Facebook, and if you're in the area, head into the store and check it out. But back to my list. So in at number 10, we've got Dr. Octopus from Web of Spider-Man. Now, a big reason I chose this is because of the sculpt. It's my favourite Dr. Octopus we've had. Another big reason I've chose it, he can perplex 4 times, but only on himself. His stats aren't terrible. 10 and 17 is okay. Do you know what's better than that? 13 attack, 18 defense. Do you know what's better than that? 20 defense, 11 attack. This figure is just so cool. He's got flurry as well. So he's dealing a lot of damage later in his dial. Great looking sculpt. Can target 2 characters. The point cost is way off for today's game. But in general, loved the character at the time and had to be number 10 on this list. Coming in at number 9, we've got Donatello. Huge fan of the Turtles. Huge fan of the Turtles. I was going to say they rival Marvel for me. Maybe not that. When I was growing up, they were the most important thing to me. I think I've got a picture, if I can find it, I'll flash it up, of me as a child with like a Turtles jumper on. Absolutely adored them. Still a massive fan. Still collect the figures. So this was one of my favourites. For 80 points, he's got Prob. He's got Protected, Opposing Perplex, and Opposing Prob. So he's super hard to deal with. Make this guy your attacker. He's got 11 attack, 3 damage. And he fits perfectly with the other Turtles. He's got a good attack special where he minuses character's defense, making it easier. Or you can give him an action token. So really good figure for the points. He's a turtle, so I needed one on the list, and that is him. Coming in at number 8, we've gone for Mr. Freeze from Joker's Wild. So basically, when this character would attack, he would attach the Ice Wall marker. As long as it was attached, the player couldn't be moved or placed and had -2 defense. When they removed it, they were given 1 penetrating damage, so it really shut down a whole character and sort of fit with his attack style of freezing someone out of the battle. I think this dial in particular is perfect for the character. The sculpt is one of the best we've seen. Easy inclusion, maybe could have been higher. Absolutely love this Mr. Freeze. Coming in at number 7, we've got Maximus. Now as a character, I love Maximus, big fan of the Inhumans in general. This was probably the best iteration of him we've had. He had TK. He had the ability to generate alpha primitives, which were these 33-point powerhouses. Far too powerful for the 75 points he cost. He could also mind control them and they could move for free as well. He could perplex them. He could outwit and possibly use it again. For 75 points, this was the ultimate support for me. Coming in at number 6, he had to be on the list somewhere, Mr. Fantastic. One of my favourite Marvel characters of all time. This is the best dial we got for him in my opinion. We do need it freshened up, and we are about to in March when the new starter set drops. Basically, he would switch the team ability and you could bring back characters on their last non-KO click. So you could revive characters. It was absolutely incredible. Had to be on any Fantastic Four team for me. He was a lot of points, but I think he was worth it. 18 super senses was really hard to hit back then. He also had leadership, which doesn't really work now because it's been changed how it works. But you could also give him a double power action, make a close combat attack targeting an opposing character that's within 10 squares of him, and within line of fire of a friendly. So that's sort of him stretching around corners and hitting your opponent. Thematic, fit the character, good powers, good sculpt. Mr. Fantastic had to be on this list. Hopefully, with the new version of him coming out, and I don't know if the Doom has the keyword, they could possibly be added in and be much higher up in this list. Coming in at number 5, we've got Iron Man Fear Itself. Now this, in Fear Itself, was an absolute powerhouse. Its first click, it only had 17 defense, but it had Impervious, reduces damage to 0 on a 4 to 6. When he's targeted with Psychic Blast, it's not penetrating. This power can't be countered. He was absolutely insane. He was so tough to deal with. Really long dial. He was 250 points, but you have to remember how characters were costed back then. He did have weird clicks where he had Hypersonic Pulse Wave, which wouldn't work. But the sculpt itself, him stepping out in Asgardian armor out of a forge, my favourite Iron Man we've ever had. Coming in at number 4, we've got Mr. Sinister, Rogue Geneticist. Now that's the new one which can generate the Nasty Boys, which in the X-Men cartoons were some of my favourite characters. They had such unique abilities. Absolutely love that this guy can create them. Great looking sculpt, great looking figure. Haven't had a chance to actually play it yet, so my next Heroclix night I'm going to get him out and use him. I've not long picked him up, so can't wait to actually use him. But I just had to for creating these pogs and the nostalgia that this figure holds. Coming in at number 3, Superman. And that's the 001 from the Superman set. I have followed Heroclix for 10 years now, played it for 10 years. I've followed the metagame for almost as long. As soon as I truly got into the game, I started following it. I can remember the first proper, I don't want to say proper because I feel like I watched some before this, but it just might have been the order I watched them, was Alex Avila winning with Morgan Le Fay, which was one of my favourite characters, Scarlet Witch and Wasp, I think it was. Absolutely love that team, and his theory crafting and interviews have always been one of the most interesting plays in Heroclix for me. It's sort of a tangent, but I do remember, as well as that, this is a vivid memory of this 150 point figure being played, which looking at it now, you can't really, I can't see why. At the time you could Hypersonic Super Strength, so he was hitting for super high damage. There was good keywords because Eradicator was also useful. But I think from the 300 point dial, he's just iconic for the character. 12 attack, 5 outwit, Impervious, which was the best at the time, Hypersonic. Just, he's got everything you would expect for Superman. Simple to use, he's got no specials. You can just throw him out there and have some fun. And this is a big reason why I like Superman. Coming in at number 2, we've gone for Donald Pierce. If you've been watching this channel for any length of time, you're probably aware that Hellfire Club are without a doubt probably my favourite keyword and team, which kind of sucks that I can't get my hands on a Jason Wingard or Jean Grey. I feel like this metagame is where I should shine, but I can't get the figures. Some of my favourite characters ever, I can't get a hold of them just because of how strong they are. Donald Pierce is a little easier, so I might end up picking him up. But Scientist makes sense. He's got Protected Outwit, which is awesome. He can choose powers. He can't be KO'd unless, I think you have to get his head to your starting area or something like that. Just really powerful. When he attacks high point characters, he can modify attack and damage. And he can reduce penetrating damage dealt to him by higher point characters. So as long as you're fighting, I'm trying to think, probably in the metagame it's not worth using because there's not many over 100. But, it's the White King. He has to be in my team. He has to be in my list. And at number 2, I think is perfect. My number 1, there can only be room for one scientist in Heroclix. And that is the one that dominated the metagame for so long, Metron. He had quintessence, he had high movement damage, he had high stats in general, but whenever he would Quake or Psychic Blast or Pulse Wave, he would deal himself unavoidable damage. He could use Outwit and Prob. Once per turn, he can use the following powers: Leadership, Perplex or Support. So he had a lot about him, but he was also 195 points. I'm sure he was played with the Web of Spider-Man Nightcrawler. Maybe I'm wrong on that one. Or was he... I remember watching a game, he might have been against him, I can't remember. But he's turned up on so many teams. The sculpt itself is incredible. The character itself, I mean, any character sat on a throne, I think immediately goes up in my estimations. He looks powerful, and he was. But that's my top 10. As always, drop yours in the comments below and drop your keywords for the next episode. I have got a list now, so I'm sort of, if someone suggests the same keyword, I'm bumping it up the list and I'm trying to get through them. So if you have suggested one, I've noted it down and it will be coming. But until next time,